recap. We haven't seen each other for a while.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know. I mean, maybe it's been like over could be 4 years, maybe. You left Monash.
I think I left, was it early? It was the beginning of 2021, I think.
COVID. Is that COVID?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was still during COVID, yeah.
And you left. Where did you go? Where did you go?
Okay, so my life story is that I was in university and I wanted to become a academic in cognitive psychology.
Mm.
And just before I was going to do honors and really take that on, I realized that I had more chance of being a professional comedian than being a professional academic psychologist, which I still stand by those statistics. So I decided not to do that. And instead I was going to go to clown school in France. But to go to clown school, I needed to save a whole bunch of money because it's like a 2 years thing in Paris.
Mm.
And so I started working at this outsourced call center for the tax office, and then I started working at Monash Connect, and that's where I met you. So at that time, I was saving to go to clown school, and the only juice that I had in my life was soon I'm going to go to clown school, but that's how I could tolerate that job. You can tell me what got you through every day. And then COVID happened. And so I was enrolled in the school and I had an apartment. And I was all ready to go. But I just couldn't get a visa to go to France. And also, COVID shut down the whole of Europe, basically.
Yeah, right.
So...
How old were you at this point?
Oh, probably 25?
Yeah, okay.
And so I didn't know what to do, and I had this whole bunch of money, so I could have bought a house, put down the deposit, but I really didn't want to have a job. And so I could have waited just 2 years and then went to France, but I don't know, my headspace was a bit weird, and so I was like, look, I'm going to kill that dream. So I killed the dream of being a professional clown. And it's the clown school that Sacher Baron Cohen went to. So it's not like a clown circus clown. It's a sexy clown.
Yeah, right.
So I killed that dream and I went into business with my friend and we bought a food truck and we then rented a premises, which could be a restaurant as well. And we were doing that pretty hardcore, working 16-hour days, having fun. But then eventually it got to the point where me and him realized, for reasons that we can go into, because I think interesting reasons, realized that we didn't want to do this for the rest of our life.
Yeah, that makes
sense. So now we're still running the food truck. So we started as a side hustle on weekends, going to the market, taking our food truck to concerts at the Sydney Maya Bowl and stuff, and it was fun. Then we went full time, and it stopped being fun. And now we're going part-time again. And now, with the food truck going part-time, I'm looking to do a master's/PhD in Jewish comedy. And that is where I'm at now. And I can tell you my thinking about doing that. But that's my short story.
Yep.
And that's where we met. So we met in the saving to go to clown school / building capital stage of my life.
Beautiful. That's a really good summary, and there's a lot to go into. I'm excited. My first question is, why France, first of all? Why, out of everywhere you could go in the world for clown school, which I know nothing about, why France?
Okay, so the history of clown is pretty interesting. But this is, anybody that knows anything will say that I don't know what I'm talking about, which is true. But this is there was a guy called, I want to say Lecoq, but it wasn't. Someone before him. But there's a guy called Lecoq, and he started doing some really cool things with movement and neutral mask and that type of thing. So neutral mask is a mask that you put on, and it's completely neutral. And so it just looks like a blank face. and then you try to walk and act completely like the neutral man. And if you can do that, then from there you can start to tweak things. So that's a very powerful technology in physical comedy. And then from Lecoq, once again, this is all wrong, a guy came, Gaulier, studied under him. And Gaulier is kind of known as like the clown guru in the world. So Sacha Baron Cohen studied under him. Helena Bonham Carter studied under him. The guy that just won Britain's Got Talent is a guy called Viggo Venn. He studied under him. And there's just all these... If you go to any comedy festival in the world, often the people winning the best show studied under this guy.
Right.
And so I just love their style of comedy. So I'm like, I'm going to go study under this guy. But I definitely am not like anybody that knows a lot about clown says like, maybe don't go to study under that guy. Go to study under Giovanni. He's the real master. Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And Giovanni's in Italy. So there's no real reason other than that, like people that I liked studied under him.
Yeah, right. Okay. And where does the history of comedy even start, really? Like, you say like Italy or France and these teachers. I guess like what even is comedy? If I were to ask you what comedy is, can you define that?
Love it. So I was considering doing like academic research and towards a definition of Jewish comedy, because whenever you start reading about comedy, no one can define Jewish comedy, let alone comedy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say that, you know, the Aboriginal culture in Australia is one of the oldest in the world, and they've been doing storytelling for 40,000 years. So I guess you could say it started there with stories, you know.
Mm-mm.
But then in Europe, there's a whole history of commedia dell'arte, where you have like 12 different masks, and there's these stock characters. So a lot of European comedy grew out of that. So there's these masks of like, I don't know any of them, but they're all on Wikipedia. And my friend who we worked with, Jack, can tell you about every single one, and you can study that at university. Then from there came, you know, the next generation were like, well, let's change these characters. Let's just use masks. And then came clown, and then came what I call neo-clown. Then in America, the Jews came off the boat in Russia in the early 1900s, and they couldn't really get work, you know, in the opera scene. So they started doing shows in clubs, and from that came... Once again, I'm blanking on all the correct names, but the word, like the thing before stand-up.
Right.
And then stand-up came out of the Jewish comedians in New York. And then there's an interesting little side note there, but lots of Jews they were like discriminated against. They weren't allowed to perform as Jews, so they would perform as blackface characters.
Right.
And if you like listen to Jay-Z and stuff, like a lot of black Americans really don't like Jews, and it comes from a long history of a lot of things that Jews have done.
Right.
But one of them was that, yeah, Jews who couldn't be part of the white culture would often like do blackface and be like, well, at least we're not part of the black culture. Okay, so that covers, you know, Europe and America. But then same, like there's these long histories of comedy in Asia, which are completely different to ours, but I can't tell you much about.
Yeah, wow. Wow, that's really interesting, and I would have never thought or imagined that would have been even remotely close to what... I mean, anything remotely close to that, but it's super interesting. So, wow, I guess... Like... Yeah, wow, okay. So a lot of Jewish people sort of like at the start of stand-up comedy.
100%.
Stand-up, wow, that's really
American
interesting.
Jews invented stand-up.
And
that's a non-controversial fact for sure.
yeah, wow, because all this time I thought that some of the funniest people were just Jewish, and that was it. There was no more to it. But there is actually like a history of and how it was sort of created and evolved, which is really, really fascinating. So I'm interested to know, you didn't go to France. The food truck.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get the idea for the food truck?
Okay, so yeah, it was just during COVID, and I was lying in bed, and I said to my friend, like, I'm going to go to the market and sell hot dogs. Like, that just sounds fun.
Yeah.
And I had an idea. I was going to like find the best bakery in Melbourne, find the best sausages in Melbourne, find the best pickles in Melbourne, and then like make my own mustard, and then just go to markets as like this high value product.
Yeah.
Because something which, like I'm sure you and your listeners know, you don't want to compete on price. Like McDonald's can do a cheaper hot dog. They actually tried the McDonald's hot dog and they didn't work. But in theory, the big guy's always going to beat you. So you want to make a high value product. So I thought, let's try to make like the highest value hot dog in Melbourne. Said that to my friend, who's a great chef. And he was like, no, like, not no. He's like, let me think about it for a bit. And I'm obsessed with his chicken, his barbecue chicken. And so he came away and he was like, yeah, let's do like chicken wings, charcoal chicken wings with like really fancy salads. So that's what we started doing just on markets on the weekend.
Yeah.
And then we realized that if you actually want to scale that, you need a truck. So we bought a truck.
Do you think that, did you have a lot of, did you go to the same markets on repeat? Oh no, someone's just called me on Facebook on my computer. Anyway, did you go to a lot of the same markets, and then did you get a lot of the same customers? And then do you think that your personality and character, at all related to comedy, had any sort of influence on that?
Okay, so I should say as well, yeah, so when we started, I was like, I'm not getting rid of comedy. So our goal, we made a vision, and the vision was twofold. It was like, one, we have a successful business, and that can fund our lifestyle. But then number two was, we make comedy shows based on our business, and we like travel the world doing like travel shows. So yeah, like we used to make videos while we did this. But something that I learned there is that I'm not like some people who are funny are like really great off stage and they're like a big personality, and I'm not like that at all. Like if I am working and like taking people's orders, I'm very like focused in that.
Yeah.
And that was a really like that was one solid lesson I learned about myself, is that like if I was a hairdresser, I wouldn't be like a chatty funny hairdresser. I'd be like someone who's just focused on the haircut. But if I wasn't haircutting, if someone hired me to come chat while someone was getting a haircut, I would be funny. So it was just learning my specific skills.
Yeah, right, okay. And what I guess what kind of comedian would you describe yourself as?
I do something called alternative comedy. So I don't like stand up. I don't like so I don't like straight sketches. But I do like that little bit of comedy that can't be defined. So me and my comedy partner Jack, we have a sketch group called Pool Noodle, and Pool Noodle is a pool noodle. And so he like features in every show, for example. So it's comedy that you can't really put your finger on.
Yeah, right.
And then I also do like traditional long form improv comedy, which is like its whole other beast.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I still do want to get to some sort of definition that you might have, your definition of comedy, but...
yeah, I can tell you a definition of comedy. It's similar to... Oh, yeah, go on.
No, go on. You can finish that, and then we'll go to the next bit.
So Bo Burnham says comedy is, like stand-up comedy, is going on stage and making people laugh.
Yeah.
So I would even just get rid of the going on stage thing. I think comedy is the art of making people laugh. And go on.
So just simply the end result of people laughing is the definition, or is there potentially a way like the art of creating the thing that creates the laughing? Is there, I mean, I can imagine there's like infinite forms and infinite channels that you could go down, but like, is there one thing that they all boil down to that might not just be only laughing? Is there some sort of soul element that might be required?
I love it. So I would say, look, so my sister loves to go on about this, that comedy is the only art form where if it's bad, it stops being the art form. So like we've heard podcasts that are really bad, right? And you're like, you still have to admit it was a podcast. It was just a bad podcast. But if you go to a comedy show that's so bad, you're like, that wasn't comedy. They didn't. So no, like I would argue that if someone like writes jokes and has the structure of a joke, but it's not funny. Like, it's not a joke. I don't know, like, it's a riddle or something. So yeah, I struggle to define the process of creating comedy if it's not actually funny. I don't think you've done it.
Yeah. I've already gone off. We're going to skip the other question I had before.
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll come back to this new one that I've got, which is about bombing. Have you... Tell me, what's a good bombing story? Because I've always wanted to try comedy, either like improv or stand-up. I don't necessarily think I would be the type of person to stand up and be funny on stage. I do think I'm more of just a randomly, naturally will say something funny and just be slightly quick or witty. But the thought of going on stage, I just see myself bombing like 100% of the time. What's your experience with bombing?
For sure. Yeah, I'll tell you, I've got lots of stories. But yeah, so like Pete Holmes says that like, so being a comedian, everyone's always like, I'm funny, I could be a comedian. And he's like, okay, but could you be funny at 8 p.m. next Tuesday when I'm paying you? And like, that's the real skill. Anybody can be funny, but to be funny on command at this time for any crowd is not for everyone. Often not for me. Okay, so the first thing... Okay, yeah, let's talk about bombing stories. I've bombed... Yeah, so they say that, like, if you want to get good at comedy, you just have to bomb so much that you don't care anymore. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I've definitely put that work in. So, yeah, like, I performed comedy for a Jewish old age home, and I was just going for... I was being, like, paid, right? So I had to... Like, that's the thing about getting paid to do comedy, too. If you're not getting paid and you're bombing, you can have fun or you can just leave. If you're being paid, you have to do your 5-10 minutes. So, yeah, I was doing it, and a guy called me... an old guy called me a Meshuggah, which means, like, a crazy person. So I was, like, heckled in the old age home. I've just performed for 5 minutes and no laughs whatsoever. It's bloody brutal.
Yeah, it sounds bloody brutal. How do you deal with that? How do you handle that in your own mind?
Okay, so the main thing that I'd say is comedy is really about creating an energy in the room. So more often than not, when you bomb, it's actually not your fault. And I have this argument with lots of people. But, like, if you ask, like, when people say, oh, tell me a joke, you're a comedian, tell me a joke. Because if you got Jerry Seinfeld to come perform... Like, when we used to work at Monash Connect in our corporate office, he wouldn't be funny. Like, you can't be funny in that thing. Or maybe he would be, but he definitely wouldn't be funny in a lift. You know what I mean? Like, you do need to create that right energy. So that's the main thing that, like, when I do bomb, I really try to say, like, was this like a real theater and a real stage, etc.? If no, probably wasn't my fault. If it is, well then, yeah, like, just because you fail at doing something once doesn't mean that you are bad at it. I try to say. But then also, yeah, like, there was a lot of very hard drives home. One time I was on the train and I was really beating myself up and I was, like, banging the window because, like, I really bombed and it really in me up because I had no excuse. Like, there was a good crowd, there was a good show, and I just bombed. And then this guy was like, you know, you're going to break that window. And I was like, I'm not going to break the window. Come on. But, like, yeah, just... you just do it.
And do you... If you bomb with some set of material that you've got...
Yeah.
Do you ever try that material again to ensure that it was potentially not the material and it was something else? Maybe it's just like I've just blanked on the way you've performed it, or I mean also the crowd, but yeah.
So I really suggest to all new comedians, especially who improv comedians, I always suggest that they do a sketch show where you do multiple nights of the same show, because when you do that, some nights you'll do a sketch, some nights the audience will laugh, some nights the audience won't laugh at the same joke.
Right.
And oh, my dad has joined the podcast.
Hey, Dad.
He's come to look at my dog. He's off camera. Some nights, and the only difference is that it's just the crowd is different, or maybe a very subtle thing in your face changed. But that's why I like to tell improvisers, like, if you do it.
Now he's got this thing sticking out under his chin.
Okay.
And he tucks at his screen.
Mr. Dad, I'm in a podcast.
Sorry.
Can you close the door?
Sorry.
It's okay.
It's happened before that.
Okay.
No worries.
There's every podcast that I ever do. We get an interruption, and the thing about my dad is if you tell him please don't come in, he'll come in even more. So you gotta just hope that you get an hour. Okay, I'll just start what I'm saying again. Yeah, I always tell new comedians, do a sketch show where you have the same sketch multiple nights. Because some nights the audience will laugh, sometimes the audience won't laugh, and it's not you. So then when people are doing an improv show when they bomb, they often come out, they beat themselves up. I'm like, I hear you, it probably was you. You probably didn't do well. But it could have been the crowd. Because some crowds are like that.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the energy because I've been to a couple just like stand-up things, events or shows to watch. And I've personally thought that some of the jokes are just not funny. But they're killing. Like they are killing. And I think I realize it's like sometimes people are going there really to laugh. They're going there to laugh and expecting to laugh, and it's like already the energy is sort of primed. It's getting there. It's good, and I think that would play a massive part in it. But like trying to be funny in a moment with someone or a group of people or friends is just like they're potentially not ready to laugh, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just
And
all
the
coming down to
reverse
the
is-
energy.
Yeah, the reverse is true. You'll go to like a bad comedy gig where nobody's laughing. Someone comes out and says some of the best jokes you've ever heard. Nobody laughs. So yeah, it's there.
Yeah, wow. And so also, I just want to backtrack a bit more to the Jewish comedy stuff, the PhD, the studying. What's the difference between Jewish comedy and comedy?
Okay, here we go. So once again, I'm not even, haven't even started any post-grad study. So I'm not an expert, but I've got many folk theories. So Stephen Fry says that in American comedy, like the comedic character is like the hero. So they come in and they solve the day and everyone cheers. That's the comedian. In British comedy, the comedic hero is a loser. So they come in and like Mr. Bean and they stuff up and everyone laughs at them. In Jewish comedy, and I can tell you a few jokes as an example, the comedic hero is a loser, but they're a loser who wins.
Right.
So,
We'll need an
I'll
example.
I'll tell you some street jokes.
Yeah.
So there's a church, and outside the church are two beggars. And one beggar is Christian and has got a cross.
Mm-hmm.
And one beggar is Jewish and is, dressed up as a rabbi with the hat. And so everyone's coming out of the church and they're giving money to the Christian. So the Christian beggar's getting, his cup is overflowing.
Mm.
And eventually a Christian comes out and says to the Jewish beggar, he says, hey, you probably shouldn't be begging outside a church. People are only going to give money to the Christian beggar. So to this, the Jewish beggar turns to the other beggar, the Christian beggar, and he says, are you hearing this, Moshe? They're telling us how to run our business. So in this joke, the winner of the joke is this Jewish loser beggar. These two Jewish loser beggars. They're losers. Everyone would agree they're losers, but they won the joke. And they
good.
beat the non-Jew as well. That's another... every Jewish joke I can put in this paradigm, so to speak. So there's a rabbi, he really wants to try pork. So he goes to a not kosher restaurant and he orders the pork and it comes like a roast pig with an apple in its mouth. So a Jew comes by and he sees the rabbi eating the pork and he says, Rabbi, you're eating pork? And the rabbi says, I just ordered a baked apple and look how they served it. So, once again, the rabbi's I think a loser. He's a rabbi, he wants to eat pork, but, not his winning the joke, because it's a bit witty. So that, and then, if we put that into the modern context, Larry David. Whenever Larry David or Seinfeld, or George Costanza in Seinfeld, or Howard Wolowitz or whatever in Big Bang Theory, these guys are losers, but the comedy is that for some reason they're, winning... they're winning the scene always.
Yeah.
That is what I think is Jewish comedy.
That's good. That's funny. That's really, I love it. I love it a lot. I think I also noticed while while you're telling me while you're sort of going through this, storytelling is a massive part of it in the way you're telling it, and I don't quite know how to describe it, but just timing, all these things. Like, what are the most important skills you think for comedy? Obviously, you've got like communicating, but you obviously use a lot of physical movements, gestures, body language, pauses. What are the most three important ones for you? And then what are the maybe most important ones that you think have the best effect on other people?
Love it, love it. I really think yes, I'll answer your question, but beforehand I'll say I think the biggest thing about comedy is playing to your strength.
Mm-hmm.
So some people are great physical comedians, and they've got to be physical. Some people are really great, aren't good at physical comedians, and they shouldn't be. But I think so often people don't. They might try to be like their favorite comedians, but their favorite comedians might not have their strengths. So on that, like I think one of my biggest strengths is my voice. People say my voice is very funny. And so, whenever I do comedy, you're probably hearing my voice, and I often do my, oh my God, voice. It's just funny. I think Jerry Seinfeld talks about this a lot, and Gary Gallman, like all the greats. Some words are funnier than others.
Yeah.
So if you want to call someone an idiot, some people say you're an idiot. But I always like to say you're a dingus, because the funny word, dingus, right? And then, what else is there? I think for me as well, I like to have a little bit of energy and passion, because some people are like deadpan, and that's fine. But that's not one of my strengths.
Yeah.
But then go on.
I was just going to go back to the words. Something I also notice in myself is just if you say a word that's random that people just don't use much of, and you use it confidently in a certain context, it ends up being funny, because it's just like, where did you even pull that from? Like, what's that? What even is that? You know?
100%.
I love it. I love
100%. And then
this is a good one.
Okay. Well, let's nerd out a bit. Let's nerd out about that a little bit. People love, one of my favorite tools is when you take a word that people don't often use, and then you change it so that it's non-standard English, but in a way that makes sense. So, for example, like we just use dingus, but if I was like, oh my God, he used to be so normal, now he's a dingus. He's underwent a dingusification of his personality. Like, it's just funny.
You're just creating words. I love it.
But you want to create a word from a word that already nobody's using.
Yeah.
That's the real goal.
Yeah, I was using I mean it's still something that's being used, but I was using the word baloney. Just like things being complete baloney, you know? Like I don't know the last time I heard someone say that, but I heard it, and then I was like, you know what, I'm using that now. And it's just so random, and things are just being baloneyed, you know?
Yeah. But they're like into what we're talking about before. Like, you're a funny guy. You say baloney, people will laugh. You could definitely do stand up. It's just about doing some trial and error and finding out like how can you use baloney in a punchline that will consistently make people laugh. But like I've got full faith in you if you ever want to do that.
I think I just have to get over I think what I would do is maybe start by doing some improv. I've always really loved the idea of improv, and I think that my strength is maybe my like quickness on my feet with no preparation, which is I think what I would need for improv. So that's always been interesting. I did drama actually in year 10. Maybe I did it for 2 years, but I loved it. It was so good. It's great. And you're just doing like ridiculous stuff that your mind's just connecting some dots with, and it makes sense for you. And then people are like, yeah, right. It does actually make some sense. But yeah, I love it.
For sure. I'd say as well, like your strength, like in podcasting and chatting, when you have a different guest every week, I think things tend to be more serious. But yeah, like I'd love to see when once this is taken off and going, if you started another one with someone like another friend, and you were always the two of you together, then I could see a comedy podcast forming pretty quickly as well.
Well, I actually mentioned this to Doug. I mentioned this to Doug because we just have calls for like an hour, maybe 2 hours or something, and it's just I'm just sitting there like, I wish we were recording this because it's so funny, so silly, but it's it's always going somewhere, you know.
Yeah.
There's
Let's
some
talk
sort of
about
end
Doug for
result.
a sec.
Yeah, please.
So like Doug's one of my best friends.
Mm-hmm.
And me and Doug are the same in terms of, so I grew up very ultra-Orthodox Jewish,
Mm-hmm.
and Doug grew up very Christian.
Yeah.
So we both kind of have the same like mindset, and the same like in a way culture.
Mm-hmm.
So we share that in common, and we get along really well. And we do comedy together, and we do like we've produced stuff together. And so yeah, when Doug was talking to you, I was like, Doug, take a picture of me, send it to Nate. And Doug didn't realize that me and you vibed when we were working. So he was like, oh no, nah. But the joke's on him.
The joke is on him.
Yeah.
It's Doug, and for those one listener,
Mm-hmm.
probably, maybe if we have one listener, Doug is someone I work with, a friend of mine that I work with now, but Jacob met obviously previously, and it's just a mutual friend we've got, and Doug is a character. He really is. There's a couple people I have in my life that I think are just straight characters, and I don't know how to explain it or how to describe it, but maybe it's just being like real true to yourself. Actually, maybe that's what it is: being real true to yourself and not caring about others and being like yourself.
Yeah.
And I really love it. Vibe with it.
Let's use Doug to talk about something like a concept that I've been working on for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of falls under the idea of like polymath. You know how back in the day, some people were like polymaths, and so they were good at maths and writing and poetry, and like they did everything.
Right. Okay.
So in life, people are often really into specialization. So they're like, go become whatever. We all know what specialization is. But then I don't have that. Like, I got really, really good at juggling.
Mm-hmm.
I got really, really good at juggling, but not good enough that like I wasn't like good for jugglers, but I'm good for like everybody else. And I got really good at Rubik's cubing, and like I'm pretty knowledgeable about Judaism, but I could never be a rabbi. And I'm pretty good at psychology, but like I'm not I didn't get a master's in that. And I'm pretty good at customer service, but like I'm not, couldn't consult customer service. And I'm pretty good at comedy, but not, I'm not a professional comedian. I'm pretty good at bike riding. And I realized ultimately I'm kind of becoming like a specialized generalist.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, but like not all trades, definitely not all trades. Specific trades. And so I am the world's leading expert in Jewish juggling comedy.
Okay.
And if I wanted to tour the world as a Jewish juggling comedian, I'm the king of that. So Doug, I think, is very similar. Doug is a great, he's a great software developer, but I don't think he would want to like go to Silicon Valley and like dedicate his life to Google or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And is really good at comedy, and is good at drumming, and is good at tantric DJing, and is good at all this stuff. And he is the best in the world. If he wanted to tour the world, making software about tantric comedy drum beats, he'd be the best in the world at that. So that's why me and Doug vibe a lot. And I'm sure, tell us, are you on the path to that?
Oh, potentially. I don't know. I love to talk to people. I love to connect with people. That's another thing I'd say Doug is really good at, actually. Is
For sure.
Like, anywhere he is, he knows someone. He knows someone or knows someone who knows someone that's where he's at, and he's got like a connection, or he's in some Telegram group with someone, and he's going to meet someone. Like we're in Portugal, and he's just off to meet a friend of a friend. Now he's in Berlin meeting friends of friends or housemates friends, and I love it. I think a real opportunist, I think, and we'll try anything. But me, look, I think the deep down, maybe like I love to learn. Obviously, this is going to be part of the podcast. I think my dad sort of instilled in me just like always be learning, always be curious about stuff. And I'm always really fascinated about learning and trying to somehow develop my own life philosophy that gets me to become like the best possible version of myself that I can be, which sort of started a long time ago when I was a kid. Maybe I was like 16 or something like this. I don't remember the exact moment, but there was a point in my life where I was like looking at who I was and then like thinking like, okay, who do I actually want to be? Like, I have the power to change who I am. Do I want to impact people in a positive way, inspire people? What is it? And I sort of just like answer these questions, always think about this, and go into much deeper thinking on this. I got a lot into meditation and in yoga at the moment, and sort of just looking at my life and going through life from this sort of lens or perspective, and just being really open. And I think, look, communicating, making relationships and connecting with people has been probably one of my biggest strengths.
For sure.
And maybe making people feel comfortable. That's something I noticed, which is if I have to like put myself in some other, like be a certain different way to make someone feel comfortable, like make myself look like an idiot or whatever it is to make someone else feel comfortable. Like, I love doing that because I feel like everyone should just be able to be comfortable, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, if we can all sort of have something like that in the back of their mind, that it would make everything a lot nicer, situations for people a lot easier, being, you know, introduced to a new group of people. I always find that I'm the person like, hey, like, who are you? I'm trying to find out about you, ask about them, make them feel comfortable. So I think this, like, I don't know how I would describe it, but my set of skills would be something to do with like, I don't know if it's really a skill, but trying to always be evolving the way I look at the world and the way I approach my life and others. And I think that comes down to the core of the podcast, just like everything I sort of live by. And I always realized when I was a kid that I wanted to, I remember saying to myself, oh, I wish I could make money by just talking to people on the side of the street.
Yeah.
Like, I used to want to just go up to someone and talk to them and be like, imagine I could make money like that, or like that could be my job. And then for so long, I didn't even realize podcasting was like a thing. Yeah. And then I was watching, I was like always really interested, and I was like, damn, I should do this. So, I mean, here I am. But
amazing. Yeah,
a people person. I think that's my biggest thing that I'm most proud of, at least. But I mean, I played soccer at a pretty decent level as a kid growing up, so I've been always really athletic. I love coaching. I was coaching soccer for a long time. My dad was a coach. I was a coach. I think there's a lot of great skills in coaching. So I think you could probably see how it all sort of ties together with like learning, being open, evolving, developing myself, and then being able to teach. To me, like that's what it's like important to me. That's what I want to sort of strive for. But you know, I'm learning to code. Doug is my master teacher at the moment, who wakes up late, sleeps through meetings. But yeah, like I'm loving that. It's creative. Just being able to problem solve, but with not one correct answer all the time. I mean, there's an outcome, but one correct method. That's really fun. I love that. I love challenging things. I was working at a media agency for like 3 months, and then I quit because it was so boring. It was so easy. The work was so insignificant to me, had no meaning, and then I just bailed. And my manager, or one of my managers, actually told me, which I still can't believe. When I told her this, she said, oh, look, you know what? I really respect that decision, and I respect you can do that. But, you know, at the end of the day, I've accepted that when I finish with my career, I wouldn't have done anything with it. And I'm going to live with that. And I'm like, holy shit. Thank God I'm leaving. You know? Like, it's incredible. But
that's so common. It's so common. And you see tweets where people are like giving other people the advice. They're like, what advice would you give someone 25? I would advise them, you know, you're probably not going to be fulfilled by your career and your work, so don't try. And it's just like, what are you people doing?
Yeah.
So I'll just use this opportunity to piggyback one of my favorite rants.
Please.
which is society, I think, is like, especially Australian culture. When you turn 25, what do you have to do? You have to like think about having kids, and you need to buy a house.
Ooh.
Now, what do those two things do? Oh, I said 25, maybe 30, whatever. You know what I mean? What do those two things do? They lock you in to full-time work. They lock you into 40 hours a week. And on top of that, there's this idea that, like, people... Like, and why does society need you locked in? There's this idea that, like, if we're only working 2 days a week, 3 days a week, the economy will collapse. Because think about how much of the economy is revolving around convenience. Like HelloFresh, right? Is this idea that, like, you're too busy, so when you get home, have your meals, or Coles delivery, or cars. Like, oh, we need to get place quickly. Daycare. Just consumer culture in general. Like, oh, you got some time off, so, like, spend some money, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I am like, one of my most controversial opinions, and, like, my mom hates it when I talk about this, is this idea that, like, if you spend 20% less, you don't need to work 5 days a week. You can work 4 days a week. And if you spend 40% less, you can work 3 days a week. And if you spend 60% less, you only have to work 2 days a week. So that's what I'm trying to champion, is this idea that instead of being like that manager, which is so common inside, being like, I just realized my life wouldn't have meaning, just, like, spend 40% less, and then you only need to work 3 days out of 5 in this thing that doesn't have meaning, or spend 3 days and then 2 days doing something that has meaning. I think as a culture, we don't really talk about that enough. Just this idea that, like, if you're working to earn a living, if you need less to live, you can work less.
Yeah, I think this. Oh, we could go into we could have. I have also strong opinions on this sort of topic, and we could go into a long. We probably will. Look, let's just jump into it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
It
doesn't have to be long. It can be condensed. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, it can be condensed. I think just, like, first of all, just agree, right? Like, so many people are just happy to accept some sort of, like, defeat in their life.
Yeah.
Or they're just happy to accept their current position and then say that things are happening to them all the time. Like, something like, it's the way I am, I have to do this, I have all these responsibilities, and they just accumulate so many responsibilities, which, like you said, force them to be locked into full-time work. Like, my dad's told me, or my grandma's told me, like, oh, when are you going to buy a house, whatever, and I'm like, dude, I'm not buying a fucking house anytime soon. Like, if it's not with, like, friends or for some sort of investment, I'm not buying a house, because I don't want to be stuck here for the next 30 years, working my ass off, and have some house that I probably don't even want to live in anymore, you know? And it's just incredible to me. This is actually also part of the reason why I love to continue to, like, develop my own mindset and perspective on things, is to just not be going with the flow of everything, because that flow is so thoughtless, it seems, to just be like, yep, do this, do this, do this. And it's the same reason I got into uni. I just went school straight into uni. Didn't even want to do it, but now I did it, and it's what I would classify not as a full waste, but it's got me thinking more like a businessman or marketer, which is good. But at the same time, I've just accumulated some debt, and I've also just changed my whole entire career to software developer. And I mean, I think I probably could have learnt twice as much as what I have, what I know now, just on the internet. So if I just learned how to learn and wasn't forced into this, or not forced because it was my decision, path, then I think I could be, like, way better off already, potentially. But I also am, like, not happy to accept that, and so many people are, and I would love to be able to see things change. Like, one of the guys at the job, he's like 28 and has been working there for 8 years or 9 years, and has never left Australia, hasn't traveled because he's got too many responsibilities. And I'm like, man, I feel sorry for that, you know?
Yeah. So, well, on what you're saying, I see so many people, they're in high school and they're like, okay, what do I have to do now? I have to get good grades. Then they're in uni. What do I have to do now? Get good grades. Then what do I have to do now? I have to get an internship. What do I have to do now? I have to get a job. What do I have to do now? I have to get a promotion. Then you'll see it with your friends. After people get their first promotion, that's when one or two things happen. They either quit their job and start doing something they actually want to do, because they're like, now what? You know what I mean? Or they double down and they buy a house and they get married. I've seen it with like 15
harder.
people. Something,
Yeah.
like, my business partner, when he went full-time in our business, got in his first promotion. All my friends that got married came straight after their first promotion. It's like so super common.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting, actually. I never would have thought of that. And maybe it's just my age at this point, 25. It's like I've actually seen some people starting to get married and stuff. But the one thing I was going to say also before about, just off of what you said about working maybe 3 days a week and then doing something you like 2 days a week. It does. Even if you're forced still to work 5 days a week or 4 days a week, I guess if you don't have a relationship or a partner or kids or a house yet, you still have like a very, very good opportunity to change. And it sort of comes down to like something that what I was doing was I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and I was working this job 5 days a week, doing uni 1 day a week, and I pretty much spent my whole day at work. My spare time, I was learning to code.
Yep.
So it's like I'm doing something I don't want to be doing, which is the work 5 days a week. And then in my spare time, I'm using that to sort of get me into a position where I want to be next. And then eventually I was able to do that. And now I've put that thing in my 5 days a week. I'm at a position that's given me the opportunity to do now in my spare time what I really want to do.
Yeah.
And then it's just like that next stage of transition, which is transitioning this thing that I really want to be doing from my spare time to my 5 days a week.
Awesome.
And then
Yeah.
you open up your whole other like back end of your life, which is now I'm just doing what I really want to be doing, and like I can do whatever I want sort of thing now. And you don't necessarily need to be like rich or whatever to do this. It's just like often a mindset thing and a way to look at like opportunities in the world, because people just think like, oh, this is my position, I can't change it. And it's very hard to change people that are believing that something like that so strongly. But I mean, I guess it's also not our position to make people change those things.
Something else on that, and I know that we promised to not take too long, but the guy who just won the Field Medal in Maths, or maybe he won it last year, we'd often refer to as like the Nobel Prize of Maths, he tries to do 3 good hours of work a day. That's it. He doesn't do 9 to 5 maths, he does 3 hours of work. And I find that so profound, because all the studies on efficiency, productivity, say that if you go to your office job 9 to 5, most people are only doing 3 hours of productive work a day. So if you're just honest with yourself, and I used to do this in university when I was studying for exams, I would study maybe from like 2 p.m. till 2 a.m. But I'd only do 2 hours of real good study. The rest was like procrastination. And if you're honest with yourself, it's like, okay, just do 2 hours, and then you don't need to procrastinate for 12. And so now when I'm working, I try to do that, and often I can't. But yeah, it's just being honest with the amount of work you're actually doing.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and a really interesting point, because I recommended a book, and I'll tell you this book. It's for this exact thing. It's called Deep Work by Cal Newport, or Cal Newport. It's about this exact thing that you're talking about, saying that people, whatever you're doing, you're doing shallow work. Typically, everyone's doing shallow work, where you're maybe 30 minutes or 15 minutes of work, and then you're over here checking your phone, or you're checking some emails, or you're just doing something, getting a coffee, getting a drink, whatever it is. And it's shallow work. And in that maybe 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours of shallow work, you can get the same amount done in like 2 to 3 hours of deep work. Yeah. And he goes through the 5 different types of deep work and how to find which type of deep work suits you as a like personally. It's a really, really good book. It's really easy to read. Maybe it's like 200 pages. Could be less, actually, but like I really recommend it. I recommend it to everyone. Read it with a pencil or a pen. Like, I think since that book, it's just like turn off everything, take away all distractions, and it's insane how much work you can do. Like I was doing like a whole uni assignment in like a day and a half. Yeah. Which previously would have taken me like 2 weeks. I swear. I swear to God, it would have taken me 2 weeks. Like the quality's higher. It's really, really good.
At the end of my degree, I used to just be like, look, I know exactly how long, because I very blessed. I had only high distinctions in psychology because I wanted to like study that further. Everything else wasn't that good. That's my humble brag excuse. Is like, don't stress everyone. But like that, I was good. By the end of my degree, I would start working at 10 p.m. if it was due at 8, and I would work 100% focused for 10 hours straight.
Oh
And
my.
I get it done like maybe at 7 a.m. But that was my look. This might be in the thing deep work. It's like get yourself to a point where you just have to bloody do it. That is a technique.
Yeah, it is a pressure. Diamonds are made under pressure. That's the saying, right?
Yeah.
It always comes back to that. Then I guess you'd be in uni and someone's telling you the same thing, but it's just not a diamond. The diamond does not come out the other end. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
That's
good.
funny.
Like the focus. That's another thing. I mean, focus in general, right? These days is lacking for probably a lot of people. So many distractions.
Yeah.
How do you stay focused when you're telling jokes, or when you're acting or performing? Do you ever like have a lapse of judgment in your mind, or think about something else? Because sometimes, and in the first podcast I did, I'm like in the middle of explaining something and I just have like a mind blank and I'm like, shit, what was I saying? And then how does that have it on stage, or?
For sure. So when I started doing the food truck with my business partner, he always used to make fun of me because I'd say I'm managing my energy. So like, let's say we had a day, if we have an event, like if we do the City Night Music Bowl, there'll be like 3 hours where we're just, taking over 100 orders an hour, let's say 7 till 10, and then we're chill again and we just pack up the truck and go home. So before that, from like 3 till 6 or 4 till 7, I just will be quiet, not talking to anybody, and everyone's like making fun of me, being like, "What's this guy doing?" But I know from comedy, like you've got to manage your energy, and so beforehand, you just like an athlete. I imagine you do like the slight warm ups, but you're just doing nothing, and then you spurt. And so people who aren't used to that can find performing exhausting. I can see why your first few podcasts, you'd be 40 minutes in, you'd be like, it's because and once again, like by your 10th podcast or by now, I imagine like if you think about your day before you podcast, you're probably like at least subconsciously not chatting to heaps of people and you're blah blah blah. So so the short answer is you got to manage your energy. So Guy Montgomery is just like one of the top comedians in New Zealand. His comedy show was called Guy Montgomery Doesn't Check His Phone for an Hour. Because I think a lot of people can't go an hour without checking their phone.
Yeah, for sure. Who's your favorite comedian, actually, or set of, if you have?
Do you know David Mitchell from? He's in Peep Show. He's the panel show king. People call him the panel show king. David Mitchell.
I think yes, I do know this person.
Yeah, so the YouTube algorithm will often show you clips of like David Mitchell's angry logic. Here's my favorite comedic mind. But beyond that, just like all of the greats of Jewish comedy, like the work, not the stand-up, but the work of Seinfeld and Larry David. There's a guy called Gary Gulman. And then Nathan Fielder is probably also my favorite comedian.
Nathan Fielder.
Have you seen Nathan For You or The Rehearsal?
No.
Okay, well this is the future of comedy.
Right, I know this guy actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, okay. I'm horrible with names. I always forget names or just don't remember. I remember the face, but horrible with names.
Yeah. Who are some that you like?
I love Dave Chappelle. I've always loved Dave Chappelle. But I don't watch heaps of comedy.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, if I were to talk about stand-up comedians, I like Jim Jeffries, Dave Chappelle, I don't really know. I'm blanking right now, and I'm gonna be
Do you like Bill Burr?
Bill Burr. I know the name. There is
if
actually
you like
there's,
those guys, Bill Burr's of that.
there's this
ilk.
Italian guy,
Mhm.
also like Andrew Schultz, which I'm going to see a show in November. And I saw I saw the Dave Chappelle came to Melbourne this
Mhm.
year, early this year. Oh my goodness, I didn't know you could laugh so much at a like a live event.
Love it.
They went hard. Like they took everyone's phones, or you had to put your phone away,
Mhm.
and it was brutal. I'll say that it was brutal. But there's this Italian comedian. I don't know his name. He's he look. He could be maybe like 50 or something, but he's like super.
Oh, I know exactly
He's got
what
like
you're
slick
talking
back
about.
hair. He's super Italian.
I know exactly
you know,
what you're talking
and
about.
I just-
yeah,
it's
the
also
guy
relatable.
From, like from YouTube Shorts, you know. And he was
probably.
arrested, like he was in jail.
I don't know. I'm not too sure, but he's hilarious.
Yeah.
Cause I'm half Italian, so it's just like super relatable. Also, it is. Just the body language and the emotions and the arms and the what are you doing? I said like it just makes me laugh. But yeah, wow. So, what to you is the most enjoyable aspect of like improv or just performing like skits? Yeah.
So I've been thinking about this a lot because I'm thinking of making a move to academia, and the master's program / PhD that I'd be doing is you would do a show that informs your research, and your research informs your show. So it's not as straight. It's still like comedy and academia, and I'm really trying to figure out what I want to do. Comedy is great because you get that hit of dopamine. It's like doing drugs. When you make people laugh. And after I did comedy after COVID, so the first time I was on stage, it felt like, you know how like most people who overdose on heroin do it after they've taken a break? Then they do their same amount, but their body doesn't have the tolerance. That's what happened to me. I was doing stand-up, I did some joke, not stand-up, sorry, I was doing improv. I did some joke, and the wave of affirmation that I got, I started laughing on stage. Like, I was overdosing. It was crazy. So I realized that, like, I don't want to say addicted, because, like, I'm not, but, like, I love that rush, right? But my favorite thing about comedy is doing what we're doing now. Like, when I was telling you about what is Jewish comedy, I just love just, like, talking about it and dissecting it and analyzing it, but like in a funny way. I think that's deep down, that's what I want to spend my time doing more than like performing per se.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, it's cool. That's interesting. What actually even got you into what got you into comedy? How did it all start?
Yeah.
Or you just natural.
I think so. Me and my sister used to read Jewish joke books every Sabbath because we were Orthodox, so you can't use any electricity. So like you're Amish one day a week type thing.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So we would just read books. And so I've read every single Jewish joke book, and that's like in my... Like if you start telling me a Jewish joke, I'll tell you the ending. And if I don't know the ending, I can make a punchline. That's just like in my, same probably like you with like soccer. If you started like a soccer podcast now, even if you haven't played for 5 years, it's just because like it's literally just part of you, right? If that's a bad example, every listener will have their own example. And then I started juggling and I started performing juggling, and I realized that I loved performing, but I didn't love performing juggling. And I started debating and I realized I loved debating, but I didn't really I liked performing. I didn't like debating. And so eventually when I started doing comedy, I was like, aha. And like I started like rapping, and like I used to play recorder in year 10 and stuff, and I'd do soirees for my music school. Nice. And I enjoyed performing, but I didn't enjoy what I was doing. But when I started doing comedy and public speaking and stuff, I was like, okay, I'm good at this, I like this, and I get to perform.
Yeah, nice. Do you think everyone should do some sort of, or try at least, some sort of performing art?
It's complicated because what we're saying before, comedy is like the only art form, one of the only art forms where you can't practice. Like you need an audience. So like, if you were like, I want to get into fishing, but you could only fish if there were 40 people watching you, probably wouldn't be a good way to learn fishing. So yes and no, really. Like, I think if it stresses you out, like, I think you can live a happy life, but you do need to do art. I would say you'd have to do art. That's non-negotiable.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's always weird to me when people like get married and they don't speak or something, and it's like, I don't know, like if it like I'm contradicting myself, but like you also do want to face your fear a bit. Like I think neither extreme is healthy. Saying to people you have to perform or you've not lived a good life, I don't think that makes sense. But also, try to perform at least once. Like, come on.
Yeah. I think there's like a nice balance of, or something I've also realized, I guess, in my life is a really nice balance between not doing stuff that you don't want to do, but like giving pretty much like everything a good shot, because like you never know. I mean, there's heaps of stuff that I've tried. I'm sure that I've been like, nah, I'm not gonna like it. It's not good. And then I did it. I'm like, oh, that's actually fun. It's really good.
Yeah.
But let's say I'm someone at home, or me, could just be me, and I want to get into performing on stage.
Yeah.
Maybe comedy, maybe improv, maybe film. I don't know. Maybe just theater. What would you recommend for a person like me who thinks, maybe I could do it. Maybe I could make a couple people laugh, which I actually had a dream about recently. I had a huge stage of people laughing at some joke while I walked down a set of stairs. I don't know why, but what would you tell me? What would you tell someone like me? How do you start?
Love it.
What encouragement do you have?
So I had an English teacher in high school who was an Orthodox rabbi, and he had a thick American accent, and he'd always say, "Do it and do it now." That would be my advice. You could practice for a year doing stand-up, or for one day doing stand-up, and you would do as well at your first show as you would. Like, just do it. So stand-up, open mic. I saw in another podcast these guys saying, like, you can come out of jail, go to an open mic, and people will be like, yeah, get up on stage, talk about being in jail. Like, people will love that. There is no barrier to entry at all. That is pros and cons. So I would say, if you're a man, just go to any open mic, just fucking do it. If you're a woman, look up like women comedians in Melbourne or something, and don't go to any open mic. Go to the right open mic for you, because it can be bloody toxic. But just get up. Either way, to either of you, get up tonight. Just be a bit more discerning. If you're a woman, improv, same. There are improv jams that go on every week in Melbourne. I run one of them. Sometimes just get up on stage, do improv. Sketch comedy is a bit harder as well, but write a sketch with your friends and film it and just put it on YouTube. Delist it, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be on YouTube public. But just do it. There's no excuse not to do it. And same with you, like with your podcast. This is fun. Me and you are having fun now. Even if nobody listens to it.
I'm glad.
It's still super valuable, right, to do it. And it's also, like, me and you hanging out for coffee is valuable, but this is valuable in a different way, I think, too. So, yeah, you just got to just do it.
It's good advice. It really is good advice. It's hard to follow sometimes. And it's simple and good advice. I think I found a lot of advice actually is quite simple, but can be very challenging. How do you just do it though? Sometimes I'd say people start creating some sort of reasons as to why they can't do it, or they're worried about what people are going to think. What advice do you have for someone that's maybe thinking like, I'm worried about this, or I can't do it, or they sort of like fall back into their shell when they hear the thought of, I could actually do it?
Okay, there's a few things here. The first one is you got to change your metric. So when starting a podcast, right? I'm just talking about this because we're on a podcast. If we were on stage, I'd talk about stage. So don't take it personally. When starting a podcast, you'll be like, well, what's the metric of success? How many people listen? I don't like that metric. I prefer the metric of the people that do listen, how much do they enjoy it? So you've got to look at and then just to back that up quickly, like a way to make money is if you have 1 million listeners and they each give you $1 on your Patreon, you'll make $1 million. But also, if someone really, really bloody likes your podcast and they pay you a lot to give them life coaching or some bullshit. You can also monetize a lot or a little. So whatever your metric is, you just got to figure out what your metric is. So people come in and say, oh, what if I do stand up? What if nobody laughs? So your metric there is, I will succeed at this if somebody laughs. But that's the wrong metric when you're starting out. The metric is, if I perform and I don't faint, then I succeeded, right?
Yeah.
That's what my advice would be. Like, same with like, when I put out podcasts and stuff, it's like the metric isn't how many people listen. The metric is, of the people that listen, what's the feedback that I get?
Okay.
Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, no, that's really good. I like it. I love it. It's interesting because I think a lot of people wouldn't even think in that sort of like, from that perspective. It's just like, how are you framing it? How are you positioning it?
Yeah.
It's good.
And I liked when you were starting off, I was asking you, like, what are you good at? And you're talking about you're good at, like, making people feel comfortable, and you're good at, like, learning, blah, blah. I think a lot of people, when they say, like, what's a successful life? It's like, how much money did you make? How many kids did you have? Blah, blah. But it's not. It's a successful life is figure out your definition of success, and then did you hit that? And if so, you had a successful life. But you can't lie. Most people lie to themselves, like, oh, I want to do that. Actually, bloody be honest.
Yeah.
Then you're successful.
Yeah, it can be hard for people to be honest with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've also learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. So now, I was just gonna mention something about. Oh yes, this is right. What is your stance actually on? I'm trying to figure out a way to frame this well.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'll make it even simpler. Can you joke about anything?
Okay, I've got a great story for this. So the program that I might be doing, I keep saying might be blah blah because I'm not in the program yet. I found someone who wants to be my supervisor. You do a PhD, you do a master's for a year, and then if you're doing well, you can transfer up. So if someone's listening to this in a year and I didn't make it in, like, that's life, right? But what I'd like to be doing, I went to speak to this guy, and he was saying, okay, you're going to do art that informs your thesis that informs your art. Your art is a comedy show. Pie in the sky, if you could do anything, what would you want to do? And I said to him, look, I would love to do a comedy show about the Holocaust. But obviously I can't do that. And he goes, why not? Why obviously not? And then he's the head of the Australian Centre for Jewish Civilization at Monash. And why am I blanking of his name? David, Jewish Civilization. 1 second. This is important to the story. David Slucky. So he's the associate professor at Monash. And he says to me, why not? Why obviously can't you do it? And then he shows me a book that he wrote called Laughter After, Comedy About the Holocaust. And is like, I'd be your supervisor. Turns out this guy is the world's leading expert, or one of them, in comedy about the Holocaust.
Wow.
And I read the book that him and his colleagues wrote. And in their intro, they're like, can you do comedy about the Holocaust? And then they're like, in Auschwitz, there was a comedy show. The prisoners put on a show. And after Auschwitz, when they were liberated by American forces, they, like the next day, they put on a comedy show. So this idea that like you can't joke about anything just isn't true. And I think it's often propagated by people that have a conflict of interest. So like, you know, after 9/11, the military and the conservative movement in the States wanted to really go nuts for it. And so they often didn't like comedy about 9/11, but there was still like the next day there was that famous roast where our mate, my names are off today, but the guy with the creaky voice, he did comedy. So like, okay, all of this is to say, no, I don't think that there's any limits about doing comedy. And I think humans are very, very, very good at knowing what's a good faith joke and what's a bad faith joke. Mm-hmm. And so there's lots of different ways to say this. But I think humans can... Some would say, okay, you can do jokes about being Jewish if you're Jewish, blah, blah, blah. All of that is shorthand to say, if it's good faith, you can do it. And if it's not good faith, you can't do it. So I am very, very happy to say you can do comedy about anything. But if it's got to be in good faith.
In good faith. That's a really good answer, actually. I've thought of this before, and I can't really come up with an answer. I think, personally, I just know that I feel like, yeah, you can joke about anything. Maybe it's something I haven't thought about, is the good faith, and I typically try to just come from good faith all the time. And that's just like a no-brainer. But yeah, I guess what would you say to someone? Because I mean, I've run into people, and I've had conversations with people just about this, and they have some problem or whatever it is, and that they say you can't joke about anything.
Yeah.
If I was someone, and we're having some sort of debate, heated or not, telling you that you can't joke about anything, like no matter what, you can't joke about any other cultures or whatever. How are you gonna position it? And I know you can say, as long as it's in good faith, but what if they don't accept that? Then what would you say? Or does it then become a waste of time?
So it's a bit like you're asking. Like I used to be a debating coach for 5 years. So you got to be careful because you're asking me to like make a win-all argument to a straw man. Like I don't know what they're arguing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But
that's
there's a few things that I would discuss. Like for one, there's like I really don't engage with like right-wing clickbait. I'm not really interested in it. But there was one interesting video that I watched, which was kind of making a good point, where these guys dressed up in a very offensive costume, in inverted commas, where they were wearing like a big Mexican sombrero and like a big mustache. And they go to a college campus, and everyone there is like, that's offensive, that's offensive. Then they go to the Mexican part of town, and the real literal Mexican, that year immigrants were like, that's an awesome costume, right? Through a translator. Same with the Chinese costumes and same with the whatever else costumes. And their point that they're making there is that like it's not actually offensive. But this comes down to kind of what I'm saying. It's like going to a campus, you are trying to be offensive and you are trying to trigger people. Context matters. But that actually says a bigger point. And I know that we're going into race politics now, but I'm really interested in race politics. Once again, from a good faith perspective. Often these discussions and these things about like you can't do it, it's offensive, come from diasporic communities. So like Chinese Americans who have never been to China will often get offended by the Chinese costume because they are trying to say like they potentially, I don't know, aren't secure in their identity, or they are victims of racism, but it's subtle, so they're trying to say that's still offensive. So like if maybe I would agree with them that like these things are offensive. I don't really know. But I would encourage them to think about the fact that like if I'm allowed to only do jokes about like white people, I think that's a bit more racist, honestly.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's complicated and there's no simple answer. But I don't like this whole thing of like you can make jokes about anybody except. And my example of this, like my business partner Daniel has this great joke where if you get coffee at 7-Eleven, the Indian people, when they get their coffee, they get the stick and they like mix it. Now, I think that's like the funniest thing ever because it's genuinely not racist. It's a observation that could be about Irish people or whatever. It just happens to be about Indian people that they mix their coffee. And the next time you go to 7-Eleven, you'll see that and like it's just funny. Now, I think I think there, if people said, no, we can't say that, you can't joke about that, I would be like, no, we're living in a worse society if we can't make fair observations that are stereotyping, but often accurately about something that truly doesn't affect anybody. Like, no one's being discriminated against. No one's not being allowed to buy their coffee because they mixed it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my less articulate answer about what I would tell somebody.
No, I love it. It's good. If you... I was having a thought before about maybe one... doesn't necessarily need to be one, but what's like the most impactful thing that you've learnt from, I guess, comedy so far for you in your own personal life? Yeah. Whether it's how to overcome a challenge, like going on stage or something like that, or what's been the most important thing for you so far?
Yeah, for sure. So I've learned, like, I learned a lot of impactful things with my business, with the food truck.
Yeah, we it doesn't need to be just comedy, actually. We can go anywhere.
So that was arguably more impactful lessons, which is just, you really need to know what you're in it for. And if you go into comedy with the business partner, you want to make sure that you're on the same page. because we in lots of ways had a very successful business and in lots of ways had a less successful business. And it's kind of because of what I'm saying. Like, if you write down what makes a successful life, and you've got yours, and then let's say you get married, and your partner's got theirs, you kind of want to be similar.
Yeah.
Same with business. So, yeah, like if one of you wants to own a business because you want a better lifestyle, you don't want to be locked into a 9 to 5, good. That's a great reason to start a business. But if the other person wants a business because they want to work really hard and make heaps of money and have no work-life balance, that's a really great reason to start a business too. Lots of people are workaholics and they're sick of being a workaholic for somebody else. They want to be a workaholic for themselves. But if you two are in business like that, not that this has necessarily happened at all with me, but I've seen that happen with others and it sort of happened with us, it's not good.
Yeah.
So I really, really think that was a really powerful lesson, is don't make assumptions. Write down your vision, make sure that you write down your strategy, and then make sure that you both want that. That's in any partnership that you enter into.
Yeah, right.
In terms of comedy, I would say if you want to be successful, if you want to make money, being funny doesn't matter at all. What matters is marketing and work ethic to a smaller extent. Lots of the funniest people in comedy are the least successful, and a lot of the most successful are the least funny. But also, I would say a very valuable lesson that I learned in arts in Australia. So when I tell people I'm a comedian, they're like, "Oh yeah, is that all you do for work?" And when someone says that to me, I know immediately that they don't know anything about the art scene in this country.
Yeah, right.
If you are in arts, in anywhere, if you're a musician, if you're a comedian, if you're a painter, you're not making money off the art. And like, if you look at Triple J, and you look at the bands that are up there, I don't want to name names because it'll make me look more knowledgeable than I am. But like, just any of the bands that are always in, the top 10 are maybe making money, but then band 10 to 100, they have day jobs. That doesn't mean that you're a failure. It means that the system is a failure. So don't beat yourself up if you can't make money from art in Australia. It's truly, truly not your fault. And we're now seeing that too in America. In the strike that's going on right now, people are sharing these stories. People that wrote, like BoJack Horseman, one of the staff writers on BoJack Horseman, in between seasons was working as an admin assistant. There is no money in the arts, and that's not. And that's the lesson I've learned. That's not a marker of success. And you can't let it be, because it will destroy you.
Is there potentially a way you could change that? Would there be if there was a system that you could recreate, what would the system look like where people in arts get what they deserve for for the value they give?
So I'm the chair of a not-for-profit comedy theatre called Corner Shop Comedy, and the aims of the theatre are to like basically just help share the revenue and the profits of comedy with the people making the comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So from a micro perspective, we're trying our best there, and we put on shows. We put on shows, and the money goes to the performers, and we put on workshops, and the profits go to either to us, and then we reinvest it because we're not for profit, or it goes to the teacher. So that's from a micro level. And then from a macro level, we've got to change the system, like with the strikes, SAG-AFTRA strikes at the moment, and the Writers Guild, trying to say, if we make the work, you got to pay us a living wage.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that all artists are aligned and on the same page with that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, because I have no understanding really of how that sort of system works, but I always hear artists in general underpaid or not paid enough or not getting what they sort of deserve. And I don't know. It's weird to think that people, and obviously they continue doing it because they love it, but it's also weird to think that people are just not getting not getting in return what they like their output or even their impact. Like you have so many people that have such a positive impact through their art, and yet they're going home and working at some pizza shop or something like that. I don't know. You know, like it's interesting, and I would want to know how we could, or we, not like I'm probably going to be able to do anything directly impactful towards that mission, but how anyone could change that and how it would be restructured for like a way bigger scale. Because obviously you're doing what you're doing in, I imagine, just like one building or one theater or hall, but like around the world, is there something that could be done? I think also like podcasting and content is potentially one way, but even then, like people could probably be getting paid more from the platforms.
For sure. Look, I think for you, I would say, like there's very valid to grow a platform and use that platform for good. That's definitely a valid thing to do. And I'm wary of saying like, people should cancel their Netflix subscription and like go to plays. I don't necessarily have the answers. But something that I say, just from a society level, like a few business, you're really getting all the hits of the Jacob, canon. But something I often say, I tell Doug this every day. A few businesses started at the same time. Wikipedia, Google, YouTube, Facebook. Let's take those 4, but we could take 10. YouTube has been a great force for good and evil. Google, same. Facebook, same. Wikipedia has been nothing but, in my opinion, an absolute utopia of human knowledge. All of those started off as private businesses, except for Wikipedia, right? Wikipedia is a not-for-profit, and they ask for a donation. Imagine if Wikipedia, if Facebook and YouTube and Google had been the same. So Facebook doesn't need to give shareholders growth. They just need to keep the lights on. They wouldn't have to run political ads. They wouldn't have to run any ads. How much better the world would be, right? Think about all this stuff we talk about like screen addiction and stuff. A lot less of that would be there because they're not trying to keep engagement up. They're just trying to provide a service where people can chat to their friends and make events. Same with YouTube. The algorithm would be a lot less predatory because their goal wouldn't be hours spent on app. The goal would be, can people's videos that they host stay online? Same with Google. It wouldn't be selling ads. It would be, is our search engine effective? And are people rating it on a 5-star scale that they're happy with the search engine? This, like, I'm not necessarily a communist or a socialist or blah, blah, blah. I just try to encourage people to be like, what if we were all like Wikipedia?
Yeah.
And if people can apply that to their lives and the schools they go to and the businesses they start and all that, I think would have a better world for sure.
Yeah. I just that last thing you said there. If people could, live their life through that sort of mindset or mentality, so many things could be. The world could be an incredibly better place if people were willing to do that. But I guess a lot of people aren't willing to give up their own beliefs or change. That's actually part of why this podcast, I want to be able to talk to people who are really open-minded, vulnerable, like open to the possibility of changing themselves, changing their opinions. Because I have opinions, and I like I'll have my opinion and be strong in my opinion. But it's like you could also just change my mind. Like anyone could just change my mind. If it makes sense to me, I can understand it. Like hell yeah, if it's gonna be better for everyone, for me, for everyone around me, like for sure. But yeah, I love that, and I think it's good that it's been mentioned because it's sort of like obviously it's part of the core of the podcast so far. In that though, I had a topic change because I was really interested in asking this before. Chicken wings. Is it just chicken wings? And what's the? Do you have a secret recipe? I'm honestly interested because me and my girlfriend have been making chicken wings, although baked. We've been using them baked because we didn't want to fry them. But I think we've had like six chicken wing nights with hot sauce, trying to find like a perfect recipe. It's not going very well. We've had a couple good ones, but like nothing that's standoutish. But what advice have you got for me?
So
chicken wannabe,
For sure.
fried chicken connoisseur wannabe.
So when I started, so my friend is the food guy. Like, he's not a chef, but he's the chef for all intents and purposes. And I was, like, for lack of a better term, everything else. A lot of admin, a lot of marketing stuff, a lot of just, like, compliance. Doing business in Australia is a regulatory nightmare.
Yeah, well,
So I'm not an expert. I just go with his recipes. But, we started with chicken wings, charcoal barbecue, and then we moved to diced chicken thigh when we got the food truck.
mm-hmm.
So tell me, like, how do you actually cook them? You're frying them or you're baking them?
Nah, we were baking them.
Yeah.
We've been baking them. We were just sort of adding. Actually, just real quick side question, because my friend I told about this. You as my guest wanted to know about the food truck industry. So real quick, is that
Oh, for sure.
alive and well, or has COVID done its serious damage?
Okay, so no, it's good. So the food truck industry in Australia is really interesting because in summer, the demand for food truck outstrips supply. So in summer, you want to be a food truck.
Perfect.
In winter, the other way around. The demand for food trucks is very low, outstrips. So, there's two ways to really make it as a food truck, in my opinion, when you're starting out. Is you either want to do it from your house, so you have really low fixed costs.
Yep.
And then you just take the event in summer, you go nuts, you go bananas. That's how we started, and our profit was quite good, our profit ratio. But the issue is that out of your house, you can't push so much food. You might be able to push $4,000 worth of food in a day, let's say, but you want to be able to get up towards like 10 or 15K in a day. So then you need to rent a premises. If you're renting a premises, though, then you're year-round. So you kind of want to have a winter strategy and a summer strategy. So that's why we were going to start the restaurant in the winter and the food truck in the summer. That's one thing to say. The other thing to say is you want to, you just don't overthink it. Just do cheap, easy food. Potato on a stick. Those guys do so well.
They do.
Chips, coffee. Coffee is a saturated market, though, so be careful with coffee because everyone has a coffee van. But try to think of something like that. That's that's the way to go. But it's the business here is good because there aren't as many trucks as there is demand in summer.
That's really interesting. I would never have thought that it would have been so seasonal. The potato on the sticks. Are you talking about the ones that are like sliced in a twist?
Twisted potatoes.
Oh my goodness! I've been to some festivals or like day events that are. I've seen lines, and they're selling them. They're selling them for festival prices. Yeah, but their lines are like you can't even see the back of them.
That's how long they are. That's one of the most profitable businesses in the world. Not in terms of like revenue, but in terms of like a potato. We know how much a potato costs.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Really kudos to those guys. Yeah. We do an event next to a hot dog. What I was originally going to do. They have a hot dog. They have a bun. They sell it for $8. They sell thousands of them. Doing really good. We have a slightly different product. We do like healthy food, vegan food, gluten-free. So we get into events like Sydney Maya because of that. Our profit's lower. And so we started to do more corporate gigs. Because corporate gigs, you come in for a day, you give lunch, you charge way more. Especially with big companies, because you know how much profit they're making, so they can't really haggle with you. You're just like, come on, you posted your profits last year. So in that sense, anybody can kind of make it, but you just need to find where your market is.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. I don't know how I would end up opening a food truck if I did. Potentially meatballs. I'm thinking.
But I was going to tell you and your girlfriend. Yeah, cook those wings over charcoal. It's not more unhealthy. You're not frying them. But the taste will. You just try it once and let me know. Get back to me. All right. It's not even expensive. You can even get like a temporary one where from from what's an example? Just like some $2 shop, like Daiso type thing. They might have just like, yeah, just a one-use one. Try it, and your wings will go up. I guarantee it.
Yeah, in Portugal actually they love chicken. I don't know if you've been to Portugal.
They
before,
do,
but
they do.
like chicken is one of their like main meals, I guess. I don't know why, but when we're going there, this charcoaled chicken and so good. Some of the best chicken I've ever had. I love it. Chicken's been good. Do you do organic chicken or non-organic chicken?
So we use one of the biggest suppliers in Melbourne, and I don't know, but it's really high quality. So I'm guessing.
Oh, wait, sorry, hang on. There's a something's happening.
Sure.
With audio. Is your phone near your microphone?
Oh, it is.
Okay.
I'm just going to use this opportunity because I need my mum. 1 second. Okay. Please call me when you... okay.
It could also be me. My phone is actually the webcam right now. Believe it or not.
Really? I've heard about that. Sorry, so my mum's moving house, and then she calls me this morning to say the movers are coming because her partner hurt his back. Can I help out? And I was like, no, I have a podcast. And so we're just negotiating the time. And we said 1:30, but she hasn't told me anything. So I'm just seeing what's going on. Okay. Are we back? The audio's better again?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear tiny bits of... You know what it sounds like, actually?
What?
Sounds like... Oh, yep. All good.
Yep.
Oh, it's good now. But it
Yeah.
did sound like... And you'll probably be able to relate with this. I know, just because you're a bit older than I am. Not a bit... Not like a little bit older than I am. And if I was there, then you were there. When your home phone was going to ring next to the computer... You might get this speaker. Your speakers are a sound of like before it rings, and you know the phone's about to ring. I don't know if you've experienced that.
I didn't experience that, but I did experience that.
Wow.
Like when you're dialing up your internet.
Yeah. No, yeah.
I remember a world before Google. That's how I try to tell kids that I'm older than them. Like I truly remember I was going to school. Google. No, before I went to school. But yeah,
Wow.
Google didn't exist.
Google. I don't even know what I was using before Google. When did Google start?
2000.
Oh well, I was alive before then, but I was.
But
not
it
on the
didn't really
internet.
take off fully. Let me see. Google start. Like when Google started, it was or 1998. But like it wasn't the same.
Yeah. Wow.
But you were telling me about Portugal, I think.
Yes, the chicken. We went there. The chicken that they had, or just like the traditional chicken, was beautiful. And they had this pork. I forget what it was, really. The pork, I don't know. It was like I think it's like they call it like a black pig. A certain type of pig that it's like thick bacon strips. It's like smaller than a steak, but thicker than bacon.
wow.
And this pork was really delicious. But anyway, that and the chicken I loved. But I did also have a question before that I've just remembered. You said you and Doug were similar in terms of your religious backgrounds.
Yeah.
I know Doug's religious background. He was what he would also say a intense Christian, or just like very, very Christian. What's the story with you?
Yeah.
Because he was telling me he was going to America to rock concerts, Christian rock concerts.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I stopped being like religious when I was around like 16. But from the age of like 11 to 16, I was like really, really orthodox. So like I would pray 3 times a day. I would go to synagogue in the garb, and wear the garb.
I was just gonna say, what's that like? Actually, like I understand praying. I get the concept of praying. I don't really know what like praying as a Christian would be. I meditate a lot, and I've read a lot of some more like Eastern philosophy stuff. I understand that kind of praying, but like, what are you saying in these prayers? Because I'm thinking like gratitude or like wishing well to someone or some people or something like that. That's what I think
Yeah.
of when I hear praying. Then I think of like a Christian. Then I think of like praying to God, like asking for stuff. What is it? What's it like for you, or what was it
So
like for you?
it's really interesting, but in Orthodox Judaism, we pray in Hebrew. There's pros and cons for that. The pro is that if I go to a synagogue in Japan or Spain or Morocco or Dubai, I can participate in the prayers. Or if I go 200 years ago, I can participate in the prayers. The con is that I don't really speak Hebrew that well. So when I was a kid praying every day, I'd be saying like, I could read Hebrew, but I couldn't really understand it. So I'd be like, you know what I mean? And like saying, it's like if we read Shakespeare too fast, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like you're saying words. So it was more like a cultural thing, and like I was declaring my love and devotion to God by the fact that I would spend an hour a day reading words I didn't understand. But it's still not really ideal. Then I went to Israel after I was religious as a secular Jew, and I learned Hebrew for a year. And when I came back, sometimes I would say the prayers with my friend, like for fun. And once I was just singing the prayers off by heart, but I didn't understand it. But then I'd been to Israel, so now I did understand it. And I said something that really like impacted me. I was like, if any Jews are listening, it was in benching. Hodl Adonai ki tov ki le'olam chesed pesayach es yodecha umashpia l'chol charetzon. And what that is give praise to God because He's good, because the world is good. He opens up His hand and He gives everyone what they need. And when I said that, I had this epiphany. I was like, give praise to God because it's good, because the whole world is good. That's the type of prayer that we're saying. We're just loving God, basically, and loving life and loving the world, and then smiting our enemies. All the good stuff that you want.
I love it. I love it. I love asking these questions. I think religion's so interesting. Not that I'm like really like a religious person. I never was, but as I've gotten older, I've become more fascinated with religion and philosophy. What's the story with like, you obviously stopped being, you said Orthodox, was that right?
Yeah.
Why? Like what sort of like, what's the story behind it? What happened? What are you really mainly, what are your beliefs now? How have things changed?
Yeah. So I think I was raised in a fundamental like Orthodox community, and I think I kind of left, like, I don't want to say that it's a cult, but everyone knows what you mean when you say cult, so let's just use that word. So once I was like, 16, I was kind of like, I don't want to be part of this. I don't believe this. I think it's very controlling. Lots of people from my school didn't finish school, so they would like go to become rabbis. And I think that's a way to control you. Like, you can't leave the fold if you don't have an education. Although you can, but you have to be like a genius. Like, a lot of my friends they finished school in year 10, became rabbis. Then they go to Monash University and they say, I have a bachelor in rabbinic studies, because they're a rabbi. And then they can study law. So I have friends who are lawyers who didn't finish high school.
Wow.
But if you're not that level of brain, like I couldn't do that, like you're stuck, you know what I mean? So I left that fold. But now as an adult, I'm coming back to Judaism, and like I see the good in the teachings and the good in culture and tradition, but without any of that like inflexibility.
Yeah, right.
But
Okay.
I do think it's very valuable to say, for the past 2,000 years, Jews have been doing things a particular way, and I want to keep doing them. And I'll say, like, so circumcision, the idea of circumcision when you're 8 days old is you're making a covenant with God that you're going to be Jewish, right?
Right.
And when you go, Jews don't really believe in hell, but we do believe in stories about hell. So there's this idea that, like, if you're going to hell, Abraham stands there with your foreskin, and he says, God, he made a covenant with you. You can't put him in hell. And then God is like, yep, you're right. Got me. This is Judaism, right? It's all like the loser wins. Yep, you got me. Show me his foreskin, loser, but he gets to win. So I would circumcise my kid. Like, I'm very Jewish, but I don't want to do like the culty shit. And I don't think it's a cult, but we won't go, we don't need, it's boring to go deeper than that. But shorthand, we don't need to do the culty shit, but we can take the good stuff.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I I like that perspective. And I guess what are I've always had a lot of respect for the Jewish community because of mainly from what I've seen, just their like community aspect.
Yeah.
I'm really fascinated, and I think definitely part of me wishes that I had some sort of community that I could go back to and be a part of, like that. I guess even being, I'm half Italian, but like I'm not really in any sort of Italian community, you know?
Yeah.
And I personally love the thought and sense of community, working together, people like very much so, mutual respect. And I want to know from you, like, what are the most important and impactful things that you've taken from being Jewish, or like the community, or just, you know, your life so far from religion, that you resonate with the most, or has been the most help for you?
I love that. Look, I do think it's a radical non-judgmentalism. So even though we see these like rabbis who are like so intense and orthodox, and they wear clothes from the 1800s, because when they moved from Europe to America, or to Israel, or to Australia, they were so scared about assimilating that they were like, we're just going to dress the way that we dress now. And that's why Jews dress like they're in winter 24/7, because that's how it was in Poland when they left. And they're so insular, blah, blah. But if a Jew goes to synagogue on Friday night, they'll invite you to their house for dinner. And it's this idea that, like, if you're Jewish, you're in. And I really like to have that attitude, which we don't really have in Australia. Like, imagine you saw someone at the bus stop, and they were like, yeah, I'm from Bendigo, and I'm here. I just moved to Melbourne. You wouldn't be like, well then, what are you doing? Come watch the football with me. But like, a Jew would do that. Not all, blah, 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 but as a culture, we have those values. I really, really and ironically, we would be like that if we were in Europe. If you were in Portugal, and the guy's like, I just moved from Bendigo to Portugal, you'd be like, fuck, come to the bar with me tonight. So we have those values, but we don't have those values always. And these thoughts aren't fully fleshed out. But I wish we had that. I wish we had. And then there's also this thing of like, so Jews help other Jews a lot. Another reason why we can have a bad reputation. But like, Jewish Care is one of the biggest hirers in like the old age sector and stuff, because we have so many old age homes that are for Jews, and if you can't afford it, benefactors will pay for you to go there. Like, if all Australia looked after their elders the way the Jewish community looked after the elders, would be a lot better off. So yeah, I really do like those values of looking after other people in the community. I think it comes back to that. Everything else is just, you know, for fun, basically.
Yeah, it's good. I love that. I think being a part of some sort of community like that would be, I was like indescribable, because I have no idea what it would be like to just like I couldn't describe it exactly. But yeah, it's fascinating. I actually had a friend. I recently went to a Jewish wedding. My brother's friend married a Jewish girl, and it was, I swear to God, the best wedding, one of the best weddings I've ever been to. So much fun, and I don't know what it's called, but when you're going in a circle, dancing and locking arms, and it's just like everyone's like, I don't even know who these people are, but they're grabbing me, we're all grabbing each other like, join, and you feel so welcomed. It's such a great feeling.
How orthodox was it? So were men and women separate, or everyone was together?
No, we were all together.
Okay. So yeah, so traditional, but not like fully intense.
No,
it's definitely very, very fun. And Jews love to eat as well. You go to a non-Jewish wedding, they know how to drink. There'll be heaps of alcohol. Well, a wedding probably, but like, you go to a non-Jewish party, there's heaps of alcohol, but there isn't food. It's like, nah, you gotta... People are hungry. Come on.
Yeah, what's the Jewish cuisine like? I love cooking. Yeah. I love food, but no good.
It's European. Look, I love it, but like it's like white people food, you know, like chicken soup and like potato kugel, which is like you know, potato cake type thing. But Yeah. Like, yeah, we haven't provided in the same, like, Jews are 1% of the population, less than that, but like 60% of the Nobel Prizes or whatever it is, 15%, I don't know. We're not like that with food. We don't punch above our weight with food. But you probably had bagels.
Yeah.
So that's attributed to Jewish food because Polish people who were Jews came over to America with that.
Right.
But yeah,
Wow.
don't.
I love asking about food though. It's
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my nonna, my grandma's a great cook. I've always loved cooking and
Yeah.
I love food. But
Yeah, what about
at the same time,
Australian?
sometimes-
What about Italian and Australian food? Do you have thoughts on that?
I don't really know so much Italian Australian food.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born in America, but
Okay.
my dad's side is like fully. Well, my mom's actually, I believe, she's overseas most like all my life, but she I think I know half German and potentially the other half is Polish. Maybe it's like quarter Polish and quarter French, and then the half German or something very European. And then my dad's side is fully Italian. But the Italian stuff, like my nonna, her meatballs.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, everyone says that their nonna's food is the best. Obviously, this is how the world works. But I swear,
Yeah.
the meatballs that she can make are unbelievable. There's this little recipe that she has a couple key ingredients that no one else is really using that she mixes in with the meatballs. She makes melanzana. It's like eggplant lasagna.
Yeah.
Obviously, like lasagna, pasta, all sorts of sauces.
Where is she?
Oh man, there's just so much. She's here in Australia. So
Okay.
she lives here with us.
Well, I'm inviting me and Doug over. I've done it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it. I'm 100% down. That would be awesome. That'd be good. She's getting 80. She's 85 now. So she'll have to. She's been getting. I don't want to say she's getting lazy with her cooking.
Yeah.
But she is getting more lazy with her cooking
Look,
because
if she doesn't want to cook, she doesn't have to cook. We can bring the food. But yeah, okay. Done.
No, what we'll do is she will watch over my shoulder like a hawk and make sure I cook it how she wants.
That's
me
even
to
more
cook it.
fun. And then honestly, I'm not just saying this. If you don't do that, you'll regret it. Because one day
for sure.
she'll pass, and you'll regret if you didn't have the lessons.
And I will regret also not having you and Doug over for an
Yeah.
unbelievable Italian dinner,
Okay.
handmade potentially by all of us.
Yeah. Because I'm good at. Because my business partner tells me what to do, and I now I do it without him. So I'm good at following the chef's
Good
instructions.
at learning, perfect. Yeah, we will lock that in for sure.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Look, I think we're obviously over time, although I didn't necessarily set a full time, but or set time. But yeah, look, I think maybe what we'll do is we'll bring this to an end. It's almost 2 p.m. I got to start work at 2 p.m. actually. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's been pretty perfect timing. But look, thank you, Jacob. I've loved this. It's been heaps of fun. Yeah, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm keen to listen to all the episodes.